Welcome to my podcast, Filmmaking, Actually. Ta-da! Today, I want to talk about something called finding your lane. I met a woman at a filmmaking networking event several years ago in Philadelphia. Quick shout out to the Women's Festival in Philly. They're amazing. Highly recommend submitting or attending, or both. But anyway, we were at a networking event and I met this woman there who was talking about finding her lane. And this was years and years ago. I know it's more kind of buzzwordy, social media'd now, but I loved the idea of kind of like, this is my monkey and this is my circus versus that's not my monkey and that's not my circus. It's really easy, to look at the world and see 50 billion options of directions that your career could go in, areas that you could be responsible for, ways you could help, things you could get involved with. And the thing is, the world doesn't actually need everybody doing everything. And it's my humble opinion that the people who kind of push that idea are not very helpful and tend to lead more in the direction of overwhelming people than actually empowering them to find a piece of the world that they can be a part of. Obviously, different people have different bandwidth and, there's those who are engaged and active in 100 different things, but it's also okay to just kind of know your lane. Maybe you volunteer for a food drive or with a blood bank, or you work at a recycling center, or you just bring your neighbor flowers one day. Like, you can find the piece of the world that is your lane. What does this have to do with filmmaking? As a filmmaker, it's really easy to kind of get overwhelmed, especially if you're a quote unquote filmmaker, meaning you kind of do everything. You are the driving force behind a project. You're a writer who wants to be a director, who wants to be an actor, or you're an actor who wants to be a producer. There's a lot. And the multi-hyphenate is wonderful and highly encouraged. I totally support it. I think there should be more of it. I think the world will be a better place with more of it. That doesn't mean that you don't need to know your lane and know where to bring in people to support you in your lane. Being a producer, I deal with contracts and legal agreements and permits and legal requirements. Being a business owner, I have to deal with taxes and employee regulations and laws and contractors and contracts and all of these things. But I also have lawyers. I know enough to be able to understand a conversation. But when it comes to a final legal decision or a final draft of a contract, that's going to a lawyer. Like, a lawyer is going to be the one signing off on that before I'm like, here, let's just both sign this thing. Woohoo. It's important to know your lane because there's also that, I think it's by Albert Einstein, where he talks about if you judge a fish by his ability to climb a tree, that's not fair. A fish is going to be terrible at climbing trees. It'll probably die unless the tree, is underwater. But if you judge a fish by the fish's ability to swim, that's relevant. If you judge a monkey by its ability to climb a tree, or maybe a bear or a cat, a lizard, things that climb trees, a person. But if you take someone out of their lane and you put them somewhere they don't belong, it can be really hard. Sometimes that hard can be exciting. It can be what you want. Maybe that challenge is part of your lane, but it also doesn't have to be. I have a very, very, very dear friend who works in fundraising, and she went to film school, was going through film school, and she was like, I am not good at this. She loves film and wants to be a part of film, but her strong point is fundraising. She's just one of these magnetic personalities, really engaging, really gets really excited, is really easy to talk to, does really well at pitching projects and kind of explaining cost benefits. And it's just her lane. It's just where she's good. And she's like, I realized when I was on my student sets that this is not my lane. I love it. Sometimes pushing past the limits of what you can easily do can be rewarding. It can be exciting. I always think of, Dance Academy, wonderful TV show. I know it's a little older, but there's two star dancers among the dancers, Abigail and Tara. And Tara's naturally gorgeous as a dancer. You can't look away when she's dancing. Abigail has been dancing since she could walk, and she's technically flawless. But as a ballerina, she doesn't have the same spirit that Tara has. Now that's fine. They both are, top of their class. They get a bunch of solos. You can watch the show. It's a good show. Abigail has to work a little harder on the things that come naturally to Tara. Now, Tara is not as professionally trained as Abigail. She grew up on a farm outside the city. She didn't have the same access to classes that Abigail had. And Tara has to work on her technique a lot harder than Abigail does. I mean, Abigail has to work really hard too, but it's just different. And for both of them, dance is their lane. And no spoilers, but if you watch the movie, it's really cool to kind of see where they land. When you're looking at a film set, when you're looking at all of these millions of departments, like, it's okay to not be the producer. Honestly, the only reason I produce is because I kind of have to. If I want to live the life that I'm living the way I'm living it, until I find someone who I can partner with, who can support the things the way I do them, I have to do it. My dream, I love directing. I love production designing. Honestly, my goal job, I wanted to be a gaffer. That was it still is. I could work with lights all day long and be in absolute heaven. I do love storytelling now to a point where I don't know if I would step back from directing, but my passion, my draw is not producing. I just do it because it's necessary. I'm really, really good at production designing. I can do it in my sleep with almost no effort. I started production designing when I was kind of getting back on my feet because it was the path of least resistance for me. So I was working as a production designer because it took the least effort. Directing is a lot harder. It takes a lot more work, but it's where my heart is, and it's what I really, really want to do. And I'm able to use my background in lighting, in rigging, in production design, in everything else as a director and as a producer. But it's okay to also be I'm the on-set sound tech, and that is my master field. Sound, really, really, really good sound, really hard to come by and really easy to ruin a movie. We literally just did a film where I had to, the cleanup that was necessary. It was so painful. The sound, it was terrible, and I had to do so much work to fix it. Okay, it wasn't terrible. It just was not great. I've been spoiled. I've gotten to work with some really incredible sound techs. I'll shout out Kyle Jacobson because he's really the best. But if you're, hair and makeup or wardrobe styling or a props master, I knew someone who did props for Bones, and that was their job and that was it. And that's amazing, But finding your lane, figuring out if you're a fish trying to climb a tree, and maybe you are, and maybe you need to build yourself a little water tank that you can maneuver up the tree. Or maybe you should go, why the heck am I trying to climb a tree when I'm a fish? Maybe I should try a water-based activity and it will be more fun for me. Your path is your choice. And I always support people doing what makes them happy. If you are a fish who loves, loves, loves climbing trees, amazing. Let's figure out how you can do that and let's make it happen. If you are a fish who's trying to climb a tree because you think you're supposed to be climbing trees and you're struggling and it sucks and you're not very good at it and it's just making you miserable, maybe find something a little more closer to your heart and something that's a little more organic for you. Maybe you're, wanting the moon, start with the stars and then, take gradient steps to climb Mount Everest, whatever. I don't know. I think going to the moon is easier than climbing Mount Everest personally, but I've never done either, so I can't really talk. Everyone has their own experience. Everyone has their own limitations, their own things that drive them. I think when you're trying to find your path in film, find your path. You don't have to do something because everybody else is doing it. My goodness, stay away from Facebook groups and don't just copycat echo everything that you see there. It's painful sometimes. It's one of the reasons why I launched this podcast, because I would see people asking the same questions, or I'd see people kind of molding their behavior a certain way. You're you, and the world is going to benefit from you and your stories and how you tell them. Even if it means that you listen to my podcast and you're like, this is a load of crap, and you turn it off and you never listen to it again. If that's what makes you a successful filmmaker, I'm literally happy for you. That's all I want, is for people to be out there telling their stories and having the resources without it being made overly complex, overly complicated, or where they feel like a fish climbing a tree. So there you go. That's it. Short and sweet. I hope it helps. Okay, bye.
You've been listening to Filmmaking Actually with Koura Linda, Space Dream Productions podcast. Subscribe to us on any or all the podcast platforms. If you like what you hear, leave us 5-star ratings and positive reviews on iTunes. It helps more listeners like you discover the show. But the best thing you can do if you really like the show is tell a friend. Want to leave a comment or ask a question? Email at filmmakingactually@gmail.com. This is Spacey speaking, and remember...
Lane, lane, lane. Lane, 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 lane. L-A-N-E, lane. L-A-N-E, lane. Lane, 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 lane.
And we'll see you next time.